So, heavy information gets dropped in this chapter, but of course, before I go into it, there will be spoilers. And the first thing we learn is Momonosuke and Kinemon's reaction to the news that Vegapunk is dropping. And with Momo saying, "So you were a pirate, Joy Boy, just like Luffy," it has me believe that he must know some more stuff about Joy Boy that was in Oden's journal that we did not get yet. So honestly, Momonosuke and Yamato can both know way more than everybody else that's on Egghead right now. They might even know some things that Vegapunk doesn't know about, because he said that he doesn't have every detail. Because remember, he's only giving out information that he got on the poneglyphs that he collected, as well as all the other information that he got from Clover way back when with the Ohara incident. Then after Momo, we're getting Tomorrow Black. Of all people, was not expecting to ever see this dude again in the story. And not only is he back, he's cosplaying Captain Kidd now. So this kind of cements it for me that Kidd is coming back, because he did the same thing to Luffy when Luffy wasn't here no more. And it might just be me, but him saying, "Yeah, I'm clearly a million times tougher than this Joy Toy." He's so stupid. But despite this being a joke, it does seem like Oda's like using this to let us know that Kidd is tougher than you think. So if you think he's going to be out the story, he's not. Because Luffy, aka Joy Boy, aka Joy Toy, went through the same thing he did, and if Luffy went through it and made it out okay, then Kid's gonna go through it and make it out okay. Okay might be a stretch, but you get what I mean. Meanwhile, Mars is just walking around, throwing out Conqueror's Haki like it's candy, taking out all these different transponder snails. And honestly, I love seeing these dudes get so heated because they don't know where the message is coming from. For all intents and purposes, Vegapunk has outwitted all of these guys, and they're in shambles right now. But back to some of the stuff that Vegapunk is talking about, he does mention that to fight against Joy Boy and his faction of people, that the 20 kings of the world had to come together and make a coalition that formed the world government to take him on. So now I'm really interested to see a story with the Void Century, because it really does seem like the world may have been not on good terms with one another. This information kind of tells me that these guys were not on good terms, but it was just having the common enemy that is Joy Boy that made them go, "You know what, let's all pull together our power." And honestly, when it comes to the Gorosei members, they could have been, let's say, 5 of those 20 kings. Or at the least 5 of what's left, because, the rest may have died of old age, died during this war that happened. And then ever since, they've just been, puppeteering the rest of the world for the last 900 years. And funny enough, we do get to see Foxy again, and this may have some relevance to it because he had lost everything. He's on a wooden dinghy with only 2 of his crewmates left, and he has a patched up cell. So I'm going to imagine that he got into a Davy back fight and then lost it all, but he's still in high spirits for whatever reason. But the thing to keep in mind about Davy back fights is that they originated on Pirate Island, which is Blackbeard's territory. And we have not seen Blackbeard in a minute, so I wouldn't be surprised if Blackbeard or somebody in his crew fought Foxy, took all of his stuff, and just kind of left him. And in case you're wondering, how would he get away from Blackbeard if he, is Foxy? He does still have the powers to slow things and stop things in time, so I could imagine him just, slow beam, stopping their ship, and then just sailing away. And while we're getting this information, we see Edison telling Stussy to just open up the barrier, because these guys can just, destroy their bodies getting through it and regenerate. There's no point for keeping this up. And one interesting thing about Stussy down here, not having a place to belong anymore since Stella's dead, is saying that Kaku seems to care about what it is that Stussy is going through. Because if you don't remember, at least when it comes to CP9 and those original members, they all really cared about each other a lot. So even if Stussy betrayed Kaku for Vegapunk, I wouldn't be surprised if Kaku still cared for Stussy. But then when we get to Ethan, he has to be the strongest of the Gorosei members. And if he's not, then I gotta see some better stuff from everybody else, because he's leaving them in the dust. He's fighting 3 giants, a giant Bonnie, and Sanji at the exact same time, and he's doing very well. And can't forget Frankie, because he's out there pulling his weight as he's been doing this entire arc so far. But one of the most interesting things about Ethan is the fact that these guys are saying hey, don't let him use his sword. This geezer can cut anything. But I don't know if he could cut through exactly anything, because I don't think the giants have anything strong enough to resist him in his cutting power. If Ethan swung his sword and Luffy had a Conqueror-coated fist there, could he cut through that? Could Zoro block him, swinging his sword? So I don't think he can cut through anything. I just think that the people that he's fighting, he could definitely cut through anything that they do. Like he did to one of the Elbaf ships, and these ships are gigantic. And then after Vegapunk was talking too much, he went up to the Labostratum and just cut the whole cloud in half. He did here on Egghead what Law did on Punk Hazard, and that was insane. But again, this is only telling me that he's really strong. It doesn't mean that he can cut through anything for me just yet. If you let Zoro jump and get the same amount of height, I'm pretty sure he can cut through the same thing that Ethan did. But I think this feat kind of showcases that if we are to fight the Gorosei at some point, at least have scuffles, I would love to see Zoro and Sanji versus Ethan because I do not think either of them can deal with him by themselves. To be able to deal with the attack potency that he has like this with his sword swings, we're going to definitely need Zoro. But when it comes to his mobility, because he was able to just like gallop through the sky to get up there in the first place, we're going to need some Sanji. And if there was going to be a fight that they like put their differences aside to work together to beat somebody, I think he'd be the perfect person. But now with him doing that, the Seraphim are not necessarily free, but if these bubbles like pop when they hit the floor, then we're going to have to deal with those too. And going back to Vegapunk, he now lets us know that everything else in the world was sunken 200 meters under the water. Or rather that the water levels rose by 200 meters, absolutely flooding out the last like entire civilization that was on Earth. Which is honestly really cool because it reminds me of like the mud flood theories. And if you don't know about the mud flood theories, it's basically that we know that there was some type of record of a great worldwide flood that happened. In the same way that we have records of that, we also have records of some places being like just submerged in like mud and dirt from like decades, centuries even maybe. Some of those buildings that you see like cut off at the bottom where there's like a window and the window just cuts off, or there's like a door and the door just cuts off. Mud flood is like one of the prevailing theories as to why that could have happened at some point in the past. Is it true? Who's to say? But the point is, it's cool to see like some of this stuff in the world of One Piece too. Then after this, Vegapunk lets everybody know that this happened to the world by some type of man-made creation. Like there's nothing to be found in the rock or sediment to showcase that it happened naturally. Somebody did this. And not only did somebody do this, they did it with ancient weapons. And I heard some people saying that it could have been like more than 3 ancient weapons, and it's just that a lot of them were either destroyed or lost to time. And I think that's perfectly possible. Like there had to be some ancient weapons that were like just gods of the sea, gods of the air, and then gods of land. We know Pluton's a weapon that can like destroy entire islands, so that would be like the land one. Shirahoshi controlling the Sea Kings, that would be the sea one. And whatever we saw Imu do that blow up Lulusia Kingdom, that has to be the air one. And maybe when you have all 3 ancient weapons, you can do whatever you want, and even do things like create the red line. But until we get that type of information, it's good to speculate on it. Because after all, the war that started 900 years ago is still ongoing to this very day. The same way with our own time, some things started hundreds of years ago and they're still going on to this very day. We're still fighting for certain things to this very day. And for me, it's seeing all these parallels in like the world of One Piece to our own world that gets me really hooked on this series. But those are my thoughts on the chapter. What do you think? Let me know down below.